he has a wide background of things that he has done. His, can I show you the list of things that he has done?
Oh my heavens.
So I'm not going to read them all, but I am very impressed with, is a lyricist as well as a playwright.
Oh, wow.
And so the project that he's been doing up at Tao House has to do with that part of him, the lyricist part. And I'm really interested to know how that is working out. And he is going to, hopefully, a secret project that maybe you can tell us about, that you were talking about with your music.
Mm-hmm.
He said it was not out for public knowledge yet, but maybe he can share that within the confines of this
Sure.
479 Delamigo Road.
And this is just basically for.
Sure.
Yeah. So
Okay.
you moved your coffee over here about 6
Me?
inches.
Oh,
Yes.
Okay.
And by the
She
way,
wanted to take over the
I
table.
bet you,
and said
I
she
bet you
couldn't do
made
that.
this mug too, Florence.
No, I didn't.
Oh,
I did make some of
Disappointed.
those,
You made
but
some.
not
I'm
that
disappointed.
particular one. Okay, so I'm going to turn it over to you and just talk.
Yeah. So the Lyricist Project. So I have a play that's going to Steppenwolf in the winter in Chicago, and that play is about a sort of family that is being displaced. So right now where Dodger Stadium sits, there used to be communities living in those hills, and then at a certain point, they sort of the government sort of said eminent domain and sort of pushed them all out and built Dodger Stadium basically. So my story kind of is about those people before that happened. So it got this big production at Steppenwolf, but I was in New York maybe 2 years ago, and I went to see an opera at the Met called Fire Up in My Bones, which was the music by Terence Blanchard, who does kind of like all the Spike Lee films and stuff like that. And when I watched it, I was like very moved just seeing the sort of cast of people, you know, African Americans on stage in an opera. And I wondered about like, why isn't there often, you know, more Mexican Americans or Latinx people on stage in operas? And so I started talking with my composer partner who, and we both started talking about this particular play because it has sort of big seismic emotions. In the play, there's a coyote character that sort of comes to life and sort of talks and tells us about how we took the land from them originally, you know? So it has like all sort of big theatricalities. And we started thinking like, this cover could be a work as an opera. So we've been working on this adaptation of my stage play into an opera. So it's been sort of reimagining the scenes, you know, obviously with very much less words and, you know, actually focusing on what is the big sort of emotions that you could actually sing about as opposed to talking about in the play. So that's been the sort of the big project where I'm sort of, it's hard as a writer to try and lose stuff that I know works in the play version and figure like, okay, well I can't do that much talking obviously, so I have to sacrifice all the stuff or just find its way through music. So that's been the big project. And the other one you're mentioning is, I don't know if y'all followed it all, I remember the band War from the 70s. They did songs like, you know, Why Can't We Be Friends, Lowrider, Spill the Wine. And they're one of those bands where like, you kind of know the songs, but I don't always associate them with War because they never had a front lead singer, so they sort of just like almost flown on the radar, but if you hear like their greatest hits, you'd be like, oh, I know all these songs. So they contacted me because they wanted they have a big Latinx following. They contacted me because they wanted basically a Mexican-American story, but with their music involved in it. So I've been working with their record company and their manager on this piece that again isn't announced yet, but it's basically taking all their songs and I've sort of written it around an event in Los Angeles called the Chicano Moratorium, which took place in 1970, which is where it was like the largest group of Mexican Americans, people of color, protesting against the war, specifically that there was more people of color being brought back in body bags because they were being targeted more to go into to get drafted and not getting out of it. So it's weird, I've been listening to this big catalog of war songs and at the same time writing the story and sort of finding out the cool part has been sort of, oh, actually, you know what, instead of this scene, this song would work. They can have this sort of love story happen right here and they could do this song and they could sing that to each other and that also work. So it's sort of like, again, you know, writing a story out but then finding songs in their catalog that are popular ones also, you know, because you want to hear the hits, that sort of tell the story as well. And a lot of their music, if you really look at the lyrics, they really are about sort of, you know, protesting.
a later rival.
We're in New York, from the city.
I'm from Los Angeles, but I lived in New York for almost 20 years.
And we're
I was all over, mostly
The state
Brooklyn.
or the city?
Oh, sorry, the
Oh,
city.
the city.
In Brooklyn and in Manhattan a little bit.
Yeah, I know in college.
Oh, did you,
Yeah.
did you like it?
Well, I loved it then. When I go back, I think, I'm too old to deal, unless you're really rich. You know,
Yeah.
I'm too old to deal with getting your
My thing
art
is-
groceries.
It's a little like, the last one of the
Yeah,
things.
I know,
to try to-
I agree.
Hello.
Hi, I'm
Hi,
Mary
Matt.
Nicholas.
Hi, Matt. How are
And
you?
she's on the Artist in Residence program
Oh, great, great.
also, and a member of the advisory board.
Oh, cool. Great, nice to meet you.
I'm very interested in just how you do that. How can you separate, or do you separate those two parts of you? How?
You mean, like lyric versus?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, really, a lot of it is because like I'm extremely envious and totally jealous of musicians who are able to like express themselves through song. So like when I hear like my partner's a composer and a cellist, so you know when she just writes something, I'm like, oh well, that I don't need to write this whole thing. I don't need those lines right now because that tells the story. That's much more powerful. And I just feel like I'm envious because I think even when plays have, a lot of my plays have music in them. It's just like the music can get to you so effectively. It can really just bring up emotions, bring up ideas, bring up feelings, much stronger than I think words can. And so actually one of my proudest stuff is when, you know, I'll have a regular play, but in it there's songs. So like when a song comes on, I'm like, it really feels like, oh wow, I can't believe I didn't help write the music part, but I helped shape it by writing the lyrics and sort of, you know, giving my feedback on the music part.
So for the opera, which comes first, the lyrics or the music?
It's actually a discussion that we have a lot because on one hand, when I start writing a scene, it feels sort of random just to be like,
Yeah.
here's like 2 lines that they're going to repeat over and over, you know. So what we did was the composer sort of created a soundscape. They sort of created just like, almost like a musical interpretation of some of the scenes. So I get a sense of like what it sounds like, what the feeling of a tone will be. And then I can go and be like, oh, okay. So in that sense, this scene can just be like this one line, you know, repeated over and over again, because it's really what they're talking about. It's really what it's about. And with the music, like that line is enough. Because the part that gets confusing is like, on the page, like if you just read an opera, it's not super interesting. You know? It's very repetitive, and it doesn't, you know. But once you hear it, you're like, oh wow, this is like incredibly moving. So it's difficult for me also because I write really language-driven plays, so to have to sacrifice sometimes language, and also sometimes I think it's interesting that like a line that reads really beautifully, I think, and has like a nice rhythm to it and is poetic, doesn't really always sing very well. You kind of almost need to simplify it and make it a little bit, almost like dumbing it down a little bit for some reason, because the power of the song makes it more powerful, even though the line gets simpler. So for me, the challenge is, yeah, sort of sometimes sacrificing a line that I worked really hard to create in dialogue, and you're like, oh, I can't do as good of a line like that. I have to do a kind of less line. But when it's sung, it sounds really powerful. Yeah.
Berkeley Rep has done 2 plays this season that are musicals plays.
Yeah.
And without the music, the play is not a play. And it's been very interesting. I know a lot of the people sitting here have seen those plays. The last one, I can never remember the name of it.
The one about the vampire.
The vampire.
Or let me
Let the right one in.
Yeah,
See, it takes many people to
Yeah.
come up with that.
Yeah,
and it was fascinating. One of the people that go to the theater with us watched the movie of that play.
Yeah.
A little bit different than the play, and I'm really dying to see that.
Yeah.
Have you seen that?
I've actually saw, I don't know if it's the same one, because I don't remember having music, but I saw it in Brooklyn years ago, Let the Right One In. But this one has music?
This is oh yeah,
Yeah.
it's music. Yeah.
I don't remember, maybe it was a different version.
It has big sound.
Huh?
It has
Big
big
sound.
sounds in it.
yeah,
Yeah.
Actually, I was at the opera yesterday in San Francisco. It was Madame Butterfly, the old Madame Butterfly. And what I was struck with, because I hadn't been to the opera in a while, is how much less dialogue there is.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really so simple and so minimalist. So now, is that also what happens when you're doing? You know, I mean, like when you see an O'Neill play, blah, 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 lots of talk back.
Yeah.
And, you know, the opera is just, it's slow. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I mean, and with Madame Butterfly, you know, you're depending on the translation, and it's so minimalist.
Yeah. I mean, I found, you know, when I've gone just to be like, I kind of read the synopsis a little bit, so I'm like, okay, I kind of know what's happening here already.
Right.
And then I can just sort of enjoy the music, but it's that tough thing of like, you want them to like, almost to be able to enjoy it without having to worry about the story so
I
much.
found myself doing that. I mean, I'd seen it several
Yeah, yeah.
times. That when the arias were on, when Madame Butterfly was doing, I wasn't even looking at what the translation was. You know what I mean?
I think
The
that's- I
music
think that
was so
takes away-
beautiful.
yeah, it
Right,
takes away
right,
the-
right.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, no, it's tough because like sometimes in the play, kind of like you're talking about the O'Neill stuff, like the scene can be kind of complex and a lot of stuff's happening, but so sometimes the scene also you have to sort of think like, okay, but like what's really happening like in their heart here in this scene, like what's the like basic version? They want to like get freedom or get they're in love, whatever the big sort of big emotion. And so it's sometimes it's weird because you're kind of always simplifying to let the music do its job.
How did you get started with your craft?
Yeah, that's
Out
right.
of school, like many years ago?
I always liked writing. Like when I was a teenager, I would listen to music, but I was really drawn to the lyrics a lot. So I would actually replace the lyrics with my own lyrics because I was trying to like learn how to like write. Just write. I didn't know how to do anything. I never took a class or anything. And then I started writing poems. And then in college, I liked writing, but I think I was an English major. But really, I was seeking out all the creative writing classes, and I would write short stories. And I think I really thought I was going to be like a film director, or that was my dream, And then when I was in undergrad at UC Santa Barbara, I had taken all the writing classes already, and I was like, oh, there's no more like, I want to write something instead of just reading. But there was an intro to playwriting, and I had never seen a play or anything like that. But I took intro to playwriting, not knowing what it was. And then pretty quickly, my teacher pulled me aside and was like, who are you? Because I wasn't a playwright, I wasn't a theater major, I wasn't any of their classes. And she was like, you have a hand at this, you should consider this. And I was like, what theater? Like, and again, I don't even know by that point if I'd seen a play. I might have seen like a student production or something.
Interesting.
So I stayed an extra year, a fifth year at Santa Barbara to switch majors to theater, and then just started taking all those courses and learning about things. And I think I was telling you that, O'Neill was also one of the big ones where I was like, oh, this is interesting to me. It was kind of darker, and I liked the subject matter. And Sam Shepard was another one where I really got like, oh, I thought, in my brain, I'd never really seen theater, I thought it was like this very stuffy, English, British, like, you know what I mean, parlor room things. So I started to learn like more about it, and then right after that, I applied to grad school, and then I ended up moving to New York. So it's sort of random. I just took a random creative writing class, not knowing what theater was, and then for some reason was able to write dialogue easily.
Interesting.
Yeah.
So your family didn't have any music?
No, they're not
writings?
like, even to this day when I go home to my family, like either my mom or my dad's side, they'll be like, how's it going with the movies and stuff? It's good, it's good. Like my close family, like my mother now goes to plays and like likes going and will go on her own and subscribes to things. My brother will do it now, he'll go and actually see plays. My dad, no, but maybe that's it. My mom's family, like, they watch movies and stuff, but they're not really artistic at all. So like, I definitely was the black sheep of the family, like,
No, the white
get
sheep.
into this
Good
stuff.
sheep.
Right. And even going to New York, they were very like, he's going to do what? Like, write plays? Like, is that a thing? So yeah, I just wasn't exposed to it. But in some ways, I'm actually thankful because when I did get exposed to it, it was because of a real interest, and I actually was moving towards it and being like, oh, I could write and do this. But I am curious what would happen if I had been exposed to it at a younger age. Yeah.
So you write the play as well as the lyrics, is that right?
Like in my own work, I write the play and then I'll write lyrics into it, and then I'll get a composer to come in and compose music around it, and then we reshape the songs. And other projects like the opera one, we're working together, but it's still my story basically. I haven't done it yet where I'm working on someone else's story and writing lyrics yet. But I've studied a little bit now writing lyrics, and it's quite enjoyable
Like
sometimes.
Oscar Hammerstein.
Yeah. And again, it's a big learning curve though, being a writer and also trying to be like, okay, wait, there has to be a meter here, and it has to like fit a certain thing, and like racking your brain over one little syllable, it's not working. So that part is actually quite challenging.
And who tells you that? Yourself or?
No, I mean, when I first started writing lyrics, I was just writing sort of like poetry that I think would work. And some composers are very open to doing that. They'll just come in and compose around it. And they might ask you to change a word or two or things are here, But other types of composers really do want it to be in a certain meter, a certain thing. So like, they need to go A, B, A, B, B, A, like, they want it to follow a certain thing, and sometimes they're very strict about rhymes. Like, it can't be like a sort of rhyme, like you might hear in a pop song. So sometimes it actually is like, oh man, I need to have this. I need 2 more syllables here. I've already said what I wanted to say, and the rhyme is working, but like musically it doesn't work yet. So I have to like, so a lot of it is racking your brain for something tiny like, I need 2 more syllables here. How can I say the same thing and add words, you know? Or sometimes take away words. Adding words is sometimes harder because you've already said the thing.
Yeah,
Taking it down is a little bit like, oh, okay, I can say this, I can skip that, or I can do that, you know, it's a little easier, but it can be quite painstaking, but then once you hear it and it's done well, you're like, oh, that really works. I'm so glad I didn't just like try and fudge that last part and not do the rhyme right, or not do the syllable right.
so is that part of the process then, that when you write something, then you have someone perform it? To see how it
You know,
sounds?
even with like plays, regular plays, I have the script that I've worked on, and then I'll put it down for like a week or 2 or more, and then I'll hear it with actors, and then sometimes
Sure.
I'm taking just notes. I'm not even reading it along. I'm just taking notes, being like, oh, that thing was chunky in their mouth. That didn't work very well. I'm like, I know I have to revisit that. And the same with singers wise, me and the composer can both hear it and be like, oh, okay, that didn't work. Like, they were trying to stuff that syllable in, but it didn't work. We need to do this, you know. So
So do you do workshops like playwrights do workshops to hear what it?
yeah. I mean, sometimes we'll even just get a singer to come in and pay them to just come in and can you just like sing
Yeah.
through this a little bit so we
Yeah.
can just hear it. The composer I mostly work with also can sing and get it by, but it's also, you know, for their process musically, they also need to be able to step back and just
Yeah.
hear someone else do it.
Sure.
And also play sometimes, I didn't know this either, but like, whether it's a guitarist or a cellist, whatever it is, like, they also need to like not be playing sometimes, to just hear another musician do it, even though it may not be as good as the way they do it because they wrote it, but they need to be able to hear it and be like, oh, and I don't understand all the music stuff, I'm really jealous that I don't, but, and they can go in and be like, oh, I need you to take that beat or whatever, that meter down a bit, or do this.
Interesting.
Yeah. So a lot of stepping back and being like, oh, okay, now I understand.
So you said we would recognize a lot of the music in the play.
For the war one, yeah.
Yes. So are you paying the composers to use their music?
No, I said this, that since they came to me, they, you know, they own all the options, they own all the
Yes.
rights. So in this particular case, it's actually lucky because we're gonna have to use all these songs, and since the record company's behind this, they're all already paid, you know, it's their thing, it's their project really.
Yes.
But if it was me trying to write like
Yeah.
a music piece with some other person, you know, like Chuck Berry or something like that, they would that would be expensive because it'd be a lot of
Yeah.
songs to pay.
So you're allowed to change the words and do it?
No, I don't change any of the words.
You don't change the words.
And that's actually tricky also because sometimes like, oh, this song would be perfect, but the lyrics
Yeah.
don't fit at all, like the story I'm writing. So, but it's been interesting because like, it feels really almost like, what's that word, like poetic or something, where like, oh wow, these lyrics fit perfectly in this moment. Like it feels like it was meant to be, and like it's, oh, I didn't have to change anything. Or sometimes it fits perfectly and you're just like, oh wow.
Yeah, so Berkeley Rep last year did Swept Away, which was a story on the Avett Brothers,
Oh,
music.
yeah.
It was phenomenal.
Yeah.
And it was about a shipwreck and all this, and
Uh-huh.
it was just as you say, it sort of changes, like their music sort of changes to how the storyline.
Yeah.
And vice versa. It's worth looking at.
Yeah, it's tough because like
traveling
some of
out.
them have like that story and then it kind of fits in, like did a Bob Dylan one also. But there's other ones like the Carole King one, which is gorgeous. But that one is just about, a lot of them are just about the actual artist. But Ward was like, we don't want anything about us because that's not interesting, I don't think. But we want to, you create a story and then fit our music to it.
Yeah, they also did American Idiot, which was great.
Yeah.
So I love that, you know, Berkeley Rep would be a perfect place.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So they're trying a lot of
I've definitely thought about it, yeah.
new words.
Do you know that Joanna Felser? They're
I don't. I know them a little bit because I've applied to their summer program before and like, but yeah, once we have this thing like ready to show, that's definitely a theater we're gonna hit.
She was in Brooklyn before. She's the
Yeah.
niece of one of my closest friends.
Oh really?
So I've
Followed
followed her
Yeah.
her career kind of.
Although I've never seen the show there. Actually, I've never been in the city to see it.
Oh.
I saw American Idiot online, but they're one of those theaters that I admire from afar.
Okay, so I'm gonna be very tacky. How do you earn a living?
Basically buy things like getting commissions. So like another play I'm working up here is a commission from the Salon Foundation.
Okay.
And then I also teach, and luckily for me right now, a lot of there are a lot of schools and a lot of programs that teach playwriting are still keeping Zoom around because they're able to get students from all
Okay,
over.
right, right.
So, whereas I would have to go back to New York sometimes to teach, like I teach at NYU sometimes. Right now, I'm actually able to do a lot of teaching online still because people are still keeping Zoom alive and keeping some Zoom classes. So, but normally I would be like going back and forth to New York or LA, wherever it is I'm teaching at, and be there for the semester. So it's a combination of playwriting stuff and teaching, and then a lot of my friends now obviously are doing a lot of TV and stuff like that, and like I have to sort of make the decision if I can. I get always caught up. I have so many play projects that I always like have screenplays in my brain that I want to get to, but I never get to them because I'm working on a play that I have to finish. Whatever. So, but in my dreamland, I want to get and make some time to actually do like a screenplay. So there's another source of income that a lot of writers use.
So are you affected by the writer's strike then?
Me personally, not right now, no. But I mean, if the outcome comes, but it should be, I think, it would be really helpful for writers across the board. So
Yeah.
it doesn't affect it doesn't affect me personally, but all my friends are on the picket line, sort of.
Yeah.
And what these people are making versus what they're being paid as writers is so big that it should hopefully it'll end right.
So how about, what have you achieved being up here in your fellowship? Have you achieved what you thought you would, and how has it affected you being at Tao House?
It's funny, like I remember reading a thing a long time ago that Robert Redford had written about the Sundance, the thing he built out there above Salt Lake City. And it was this thing about like being able to work somewhere, but really needed like as a human being to go outside and sort of be in sort of nature, whatever your thing is, but be in sort of like just to balance between the two of like really being in the craft and working on whatever you're working on, whether it's in, directing or acting or writing music, but then really taking time to like go and actually feed the other part of your soul or feed the other part of your body. So like it's been a lot of that. I've been in the room working a lot and sometimes losing track of the time, and then making sure I actually take time to actually go out and be like, oh, okay, right, yes. And like I've actually spent a lot of time, I'm sure you guys have seen it, but there's like at least, there might be a lot of them, but there's a few like baby cows that are there. And for some reason, like another place I'm working on about this, about monk seals, I spent a lot of time like just kind of watching the cows. I would kind of sit and just wherever they were gathered, when they were kind of near the house, whatever. And that was actually really interesting because it like thinking about animals in the play I was working on, but also like just watching them and being like, oh, like they do this a lot, or they do this. So like, oh, I wonder how the parent and the calf thing works. Yeah.
Well, we try to provide.
So
We have the deer coming in next week.
Well, even like in the chair in the trunk room, like I have a perfect view of when they mostly gathered is right there, like in this tree.
Oh.
Yeah. So I spent a lot of time doing that, but yeah, it's been interesting because I remember I ran into you once up there, and I was kind of getting in late, but I kind of took a while to figure out my schedule because like at first I tried going early, but then in the late afternoon I would get kind of like tired and burnt out, and so I kind of like when I started writing a little bit later, but staying later because I really like the evenings there. So once I found my schedule, my groove, then I was able to really get in there and actually do a lot of work.
How did you hear about the program?
Actually I don't remember, but I know that Jen Mays was a good friend of mine who's done this before.
Oh.
So it might have been through her, or I heard about it originally. And then I think I just saw the application applied, I think most playwrights are always like, just trading sort of like, oh, I was here and I got a lot done, you should try it, or this is really good for you. So like, it's just one of those things that we just sort of hear through each other. And then also, I think I told you that I'd seen her, I saw her little, I actually recognized her handwriting before I saw it written in the book up there.
Did she tell you we're doing her play?
She told me she was coming back, yeah. Is it the
So
Yellow
in
Wallpaper?
August.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're so very excited. It's
That's very
a
cool.
collaboration with the committees, the artistic and
Oh, cool.
artists to start showcasing some of the work of the artist.
Yeah, she said that she got a lot, especially that kind of play or that story, I think would work really well to just be like, to be isolated and sort of like just the work.
And what's also great is Wendy filmed her salon, and so we've been able to use that to say, if you want to know about this play, listen to the playwright talk about it. So it's fantastic because it's it's not a known play, it's not a known playwright. But to have them, to have somebody like you talk about it, it's fantastic.
Yeah. She also written in her thing in the trunk room, come at night, be here at night.
Oh, yeah.
And so that actually, I wouldn't have thought of it.
Yeah.
But then I started actually being there at night a lot. It gets a little scary if you stay really late and it's super dark, but.
We summer that in the winter.
Yeah.
But
So
like-
what about your Monk's Hill project?
Yeah, that one, I got a lot of research done on that one. I'm writing a Salon foundation, so the foundation that puts a lot of, they want to put science in place. And so they gave me a commission to write a piece about monk seals. And that one, like, I knew sort of my basic idea, which is that there's been these intentional killings of monk seals, which is an endangered species in Molokai, and around the Hawaiian Islands a little bit. And there's sort of this, a lot of talk about why that's happening. And some people think it's just fishermen thinking that the monk seals are taking their fish. But there's other people who think it's sort of like, there's one teacher, I guess, in Molokai who's sort of teaching that the monk seal is not indigenous or not native to Hawaii, to Hawaiian Islands, and that they're sort of almost having a little indigenous native battle with the monk seals a little bit. So I knew that sort of basic story, but while I'd been here, I brought a lot of books with me, and I've been reading a lot about that, and now I have a whole, bigger understanding of that situation that's going on, and then about monk seals in general, which I knew a little bit, but not as much as I know now. So now I'm super well versed in monk seals, and I have notes basically for what will be the play once I get it done.
My son and his family have been watching Chimp Empire.
Oh, okay.
And I watched that last night. It's fascinating, by the way. Netflix. It's how they all lived together and had their,
They're
different.
definitely family chimps. I mean, they
Yes,
take care of
yeah,
themselves,
big
I know,
family.
yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, so that one in particular, watching the cows has been. Yeah, also, there's been a lot of
Made into
baby,
them to monk seals.
yeah, baby deer.
Yeah,
Oh,
Yeah.
this time here.
Yeah.
yeah. Have you seen any bobcats?
I did. I saw
Yeah.
one.
Yeah.
I was driving up, and I saw this thing like walking like the direction I was going, and I was like, it's too thick to be a cat, but it was moving weird. And then finally, I kind of saw like pointy ears, and then when I got closer, it jarred off, and I was like, oh, it's a bobcat.
Yeah.
You can tell by the tail.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sort of had a little like
Their
side to
gait.
side movements. Yeah.
I was curious about the title of the play that you were working on up there. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Which title?
It was the Home That What Howls or something?
Yeah,
like
it's
that?
called Home What Howls,
Home House.
or the House What Was Ravine. And the idea being that, it was a ravine, it's called the Chavez Ravine, where they all lived.
Right.
And so that was sort of their home, and in the play we get into a little bit about the coyotes coming in and being like, this is also was our home until you came here. So it's sort of like, whose home was it? And now it's Dodger Stadium. And it's weird also for me when I go to Dodger Stadium now, which I love to do, I can't help but look kind of at other parts outside the stadium and be like, oh, I wonder what was there. I know there was actually, they didn't want to take the time to tear down this, because there was 3 schools, it was like a big community, like 3 different communities, like schools, everything. But they didn't want to take the time to demolish this whole school. So like they left the school standing, they took the roof off, and they just sort of put dirt all over it and just buried it basically. So there's still like somewhere in there, there's literally a school, I mean a small school, but a school that's still there, but just covered up with dirt. So like some of the stuff has just got sort of, kind of buried basically. So when I'm there, I'm sort of like watching the game, and I'm also like, oh, I wonder what was over there, what was over there.
Interesting.
Why couldn't they have just left it for some other purpose?
I don't know.
Another reason for me not to like the Dodgers.
Thank God we swept them.
I used to like them when they were in Brooklyn.
I cried when they left.
Yeah.
I was 10 years old. I
Yeah.
cried when the Dodgers and the Giants left New
Yeah.
York.
How could they do that? Yeah. It was always, if you grew up in the New York area, and I grew up in New Jersey, it was always that there was the division within school where you were a Dodgers fan, a Yankees fan, or a
I
Giants
know,
fan.
I
Oh,
know.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how interesting that New York had 3,
Yeah,
baseball
yeah.
teams
Yeah.
back when I was a kid. I grew up in New Jersey also.
Yeah. But you were closer to Philadelphia. You
I know, I was never a
You were
Philadelphia
like-
You
fan.
can still go see the in Crown Heights. There's still I don't know if it's the facade or some aspect of the stadium is still like present. I think in front of one of the buildings or the housings there or something like that.
If
You can drive by and see like the Ebbets Field.
If you're a Dodgers fan, have you ever read, no, I can't think of her name, Doris Kearns Goodwin's book?
About
Oh,
baseball?
about baseball. Oh, yeah, you should read
What
that.
is this, what is the content?
She talks
If
about
you
his-
just Google Doris Kearns Goodwin, you
Goodwin.
can find it. But she was grew up, her father was a big baseball fan.
and she
Actually, I
learned-
heard her-
She learned to keep score
Right.
early and, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
before they were on TV much, and, yeah, so it's a great book.
cool.
She was the commencement speaker at one of my daughter's college
really?
graduations, and she was fabulous, and she talked a lot about baseball, but how it related to our lives.
Hmm.
Yeah, you should really read the book, and it'll give
Interesting.
you an idea for another play.
Cool, cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my dad used to work part-time as security guard at Dodger Stadium.
Oh,
So he would always sneak me and my brother in and like sit us somewhere, and then when someone came to sit there, we had to leave, go somewhere else.
Mhm.
We spent a lot of time there, but you know, it's funny that I did grow up
Yeah.
with a lot of Dodger Stadium and baseball, and so it's weird to not be writing about it.
How long does it take you to do these projects? I guess it just depends on,
No, I think I was filling an application out for something, and I was sort of describing like it's changed over the years, but
sure,
even if I'm writing like a sort of a family sort of drama, I spend probably now like a year researching it before anything. Like it takes that long because I just sort of get caught up and I sort of like I go down these huge rabbit holes of like, but along the way, like one of my favorite parts actually is researching something, and then you'll be reading about something and being like, oh, like that little detail, that's interesting. And I have notes of like, okay, that's gonna come in somehow. So I'm researching for like a year or so, but along the way I am sort of building in my brain. I haven't written anything, but I'm building up a little bit of like, I know there's a big, music thing that happens here. I know that there's a character who does this, like,
so you don't make notes to remember?
I have notes of like, page blah, 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 this book, this little detail, and like a big star by it, So I'll research for about a year, and I've tried not doing that. I've tried just like writing a play to see what happens, and I'm always like, it feels like naked or something, I don't know. But yeah, so I'll spend like a year or so researching, and then when I'm really full, I kind of put all the research away, and then I sort of just start writing. I find all these ideas are still in my brain that I've written
Right.
down, and I can do it, and I feel very like empowered or something. I can like, because I have so much stuff in me to pull upon. And as I'm writing, I'll be like, oh, that thing. I'll go back and be like, oh, that thing. Okay, I'll do this. So like, it's weird. It's not smart career-wise, but I've gotten further and further into like, I need to do a ton of research, and also if I can go talk to people who like the war project, I went and met like the people who organized that 1970 and talked to them about their experiences, like, so as deep as I can get into it, I get into it.
I just finished The Covenant of Water, and at the end of the book, he talks about where he got, all of the information and the research that he did, in order to write that book was
Right.
just, just blew me away. And it's from so many different sources and things and people and this, that, and the other thing. So I would think that the way you're doing it is very, well, I won't say common, but you have to do that in order to feel like it's authentic.
And I think there's just things, even if it's really like a story about my family, like I'm researching like things about just aspects I didn't really know about or how other families dealt with it, whatever the thing is, and I'm like,
Sure.
I just, even if it's a personal story, it feels like it feeds a lot. Like one play has really my mother's story about her life kind of before I was born, before I met my father. But even that one, it's a lot of just like what was East Los Angeles like, and in the late '60s, early '70s. Just there's so much things I want to know more about it, because then otherwise I feel like I'm just like, sure, there's this sort of, but I want to know what sort of street was there, what sort of bus system, so I can't get creative. I think of like I don't need to, like I remember one time there's just a short scene in this play where my grandmother used to like to take the bus from East LA to the beach. And the kids would all get worried because they thought she was getting too old to do that by herself, and like she wouldn't tell anyone, and she would just kind of go and spend there and just kind of sit within the waterfall and come back on her own. And she kept doing this, pretty late into her life. But I found myself online, like trying to figure out, I wanted the exact bus line that she took in that year, and I was able to find it online actually. And so just so I could have in the play, like I take the 252 and I transfer to the blah blah. I wanted it to be like, I didn't have to do that.
No.
But but as I remember, I was researching the bus, I was like, this is probably too much. But now that I have it, I'm like, oh, I like that it actually is the bus line she would have taken.
Yeah.
So interesting.
And you said that you've been reading more of O'Neill while you were up there?
Yeah. I mean, like after you gave me the tour, and being in that room especially, I was like, oh, that's pretty crazy that those specific plays were written there. So I did look at a little bit of like Move from Misbegotten, where I've seen most of them, I think, but and I'd seen a really they did a wonderful Long Day's Journey at the Geffen in LA with I want to say it was I'm blanking on his name right now. He's a well-known actor though. And I'd seen Gabriel Byrne and Sherry Jones do Move from Misbegotten on Broadway. I've seen most of the plays, and Huey, I think Al Pacino did Huey. But like I told you I hadn't read The Hairy Ape, which I read that one, and then I was looking at All Wilderness, and then I always just like to look at Long Day's Journey because it's one of my favorite ones. So it's been kind of like there's something about reading his work and knowing that the house is there and like all the things you told me about the house, like inside the house. So there was something definitely like, and I actually loved walking on the pathway all the time and seeing the plays and be like, oh, like interesting, or like even just the thought of like, oh wow, he looked at a view similar to this, you know, whether it changed a little bit or not, you know, and that one and wrote all those things. So there's something very nice about just like, and it happened to be an author that I actually, you know, was one of my first really favorite playwrights that I discovered when I started to learn about theater. So it's sort of a weird. I remember I was telling like friends, they were like, oh, how funny that you're there of all places, since they knew that he was one of my favorites. So yeah.
We love that. Well, we're so glad that you were able to come, and so glad that it's been a rewarding time for you.
Yeah. I mean, I'm as soon as I got here, I was like, okay, like all this.
That's what people feel like, you know, they really, you're not alone, you're with everyone that's been here the last 17, so, yeah, they all feel that same.
No, it's been pretty amazing.
So what do you take away from this when you go back to working on other things?
Actually, the toughest part is usually like when I go to a cafe or wherever it is in the next couple of weeks to write whatever, it's gonna be hard to be like, oh, there's all this like stimulus, and to really get to zone in, to be able to like to have the solitude. And then also, I mean, one of the biggest, it sounds like small, but it really isn't. Like even at home, if I'm working on something, you know, there's the dog, I gotta do it. Like there's so many things that kind of pull at you,
Right.
that disrupt you a little bit. So you try and get in the groove, but then you're like, oh, I should take the meat out. Yeah, I should do that. You know. So there's this, and so not having that actually. But going back to that, even though it'll be nice to be home and stuff like that, there's still like, oh, I had the comfort of like really just being, I just have to do this. And like actually part of the scheduling I did was like, I started getting up, going to breakfast, and then doing all my emails and all my sort of busy career stuff, and then getting that done. Because the first couple of days I got swamped in that stuff when I was at the trunk room. Once I started getting around that in the morning, and then going, and all I had no emails over my head, nothing. It was just work. So it'll be hard to go back and we'll do a little like, okay, life, and also this project.
All the distractions.
Yeah.
So you generally write in a coffee shop or
I mean, to go back to the research thing, like I try and find something that's like I wrote this one play about Mexican segregation in Los Angeles, and I wrote the play by hand on paper, like in a cafe that I found that's across the street from where the actual Mexicans only school was. And I think in my brain that like feeds me or something.
I remember being, I think it was at Rakestraw, and the author, I think of his name, of the book Birdsong, was asked where he wrote, and I think he's the one who had a friend who's, he went to his house, and in the basement, so he said he treated it like going to work each day, and that was his office. And then there was Peter Carey was there, and he just writes at home with his kids running around and everything. So different ways, and there's some writer that writes basically in a closet.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So
I have a lot of friends who have kids who like, after the kids are asleep, they go and find themselves a couple hours in a specific room in the house, and like they have to, you know, at nighttime they make sure they get those 2 hours every day after everything's taken care of, you know.
yeah.